All right, good afternoon, everybody. Old Guy Jamming here. We've got some things planned for this Epiphone, Les Paul Epiphone Standard. It is one of those guitars that I have had to fight tuning-wise. The tuning stability I don't find is very good. And after doing some research, a lot of people apparently have issues with the intonation within the first five frets here, with the big open chords and different positions of chords that you played in here, E in the second position, etc., where you really struggle with it. So one of the recommendations right off the bat from a lot of people is that you get one of those compensated nuts, an Irvana nut. There's some compensated ones on eBay. They look a little different, but you can definitely tell that the nut is configured to help with intonation purposes. Otherwise, it's got a great tone. I love the tone, but I am fighting it. It's not just a pick up and play type guitar. The other thing we're going to do today is add a treble bleed circuit. We're going to add some of these to the volume pots because when you lower the volume on this guitar, it does get dark very quickly, and that's never a good thing for me. Anyway, I don't care for that. I like the tone to stay nice and bright and the volume to drop and the distortion to clean up, but I do like the tone to stay bright. And then I didn't like the color scheme of these top hats, so I was pulling these off to put some cream-colored caps on, which I thought looked a lot cooler. And I ended up pulling the stem clear out of this push-pull pot that's back here at the end, which was a bummer, but isn't that the way it goes? You just want to do something simple, and you end up breaking your guitar. Stupid. Anyway, we're going to put a new one in. I've got the new style, the modern style electronics in this one, so it might be interesting for you to check that out. So that's what we're doing, a new push-pull pot, the kind that, this has the circuit boards in it attached to all the pots with the plugs, and then we'll put these treble bleeds in across the volume pots. Be back in a second. Got the guitar protected with this towel and some weight on the pot so that I can put some pressure on the PC board. And I just wanted to make a note, when you're sucking solder out of these vias, sometimes it helps a lot. Once you've removed the bulk of the solder, you have to add a little bit of new solder with it hot, with the tip hot and the pins hot. Add just a tad of new solder and then apply the solder sucker, and it helps pull all the solder collectively out of those vias. And then with a screwdriver, you just slowly work back and forth. Take your time and be patient. You don't want to overheat these pads. If it gets too hot and you suck too much, you're going to suck the pads right off this little circuit board. So take your time and just treat each individual pin as its own project. And before you know it, they'll be cleared up enough. You can get a little screwdriver in there, wiggle it back and forth, free it up. I've got this back pin still a little bit tight, but for the most part, that's ready to come off. All right, so that was really fast time lapse. I hit time lapse without thinking about it. But before I get into what I was talking about with the solder sucker, hey, remember the pepper video? Should you do this, and eat this up, the thing you got to eat them with are these Frito chili cheese chips. Oh my goodness. Those two flavors together are the best thing in the world. If you want to impress a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or someone's mom and dad, or go to a party and be the coolest person there. The peppers with these is a flavor like you've never even seen. Never even dreamed of. Okay. So what I was saying was sometimes your solder sucker won't suck, and that makes you suck, and that's no good. You'll struggle, and you'll beat the heck out of your pins and pads. You want this to have enough good suction that when you release this, if you hold your finger over the tip, it should hold suction in the tube, in the pen, in the solder sucker. And when you release your thumb, the piston ought to go on up. Okay? And if it doesn't do that, if it's leaky, or it doesn't have that good kind of suction, then it needs to be cleaned. And that's what I was going over in the video. You take this tip off, and keep your tip in good shape here too. You want to take that out. Then there's a spring that comes out. And when I did this in the video, it was full of solder. I was not having a good result with my solder sucking. And there's still a little bit of crap around this, but it's very nice and clean. So spray it off with WD-40 or some sort of spray. Lubricant spray is better because you're going to be putting Vaseline or some sort of petroleum back on. And if you use Windex, it has grease cutting additives in it, which defeats the purpose. So spray it off, clean it up, clean the tube with a paper towel or something. And then put a nice coating of Vaseline back on your plunger. Put that back in, spring back in, tip back on. Coat this part with Vaseline as well so that O-ring doesn't bind and grab on the end of the tube. It seats nicely and softly. And then you'll have good sucking power, which is good. You want to be able to, this should all be tight enough so that it holds until you release your thumb and then pops. That's good suction. Otherwise, you're going to fight those solder connections a lot. All right? So, and then don't forget these peppers. Oh, it's so good. It tastes like you've never tasted in your life. These with these chili cheese Fritos. Old pot and new pot, and I knew this difference occurred, but I couldn't find. I tried searching for Gibson modern pot, etc., PCB board, mount pot. I tried lots of different things at Stewmac and Amazon. So I decided I would just mod this one. Everything's the same except these front pins. And I figured I could with nippy cutters. I bent them up already and straightened them. So it's a beautiful, beautiful fit. It'll just A-B right over. But I will have to cut the tops off these pins and narrow them a little bit to get them up into the PCB. But nippy cutters are a fantastic tool and should do the job nicely. The tone pot's back in, and I'm putting the treble bleed in, and Stewmac sells these as like 10 pieces of the resistor and 10 pieces of the little caps, and then I just solder them together into little pieces like this because I've put them on all my guitars. I haven't had any problem using up all the pieces. I've got 2 or 3 left, but I just make them up like that, and they go across the used pot connections of the pot. So I identified my ground by using a voltmeter and just looked for continuity between existing ground and that leg of the potentiometer, the volume pot, and it just goes across the other 2 legs. Doesn't have any polarity or orientation. And then I'll just bend this back down like this so it's out of the way. I might put a piece of tape between it and those pins just for giggles, but there's plenty of room in here. And now that's installed, and I'll do the other one and put the plugs back together. Fire it up. While you're in here, make sure you look around at other solder joints. That out on that board right there to the red wire is just about ready to fall out. So when you're doing your tweaks, look around and make sure everything else looks good as well. You'll save your time in the long run. And while I'm thinking about it, if you've never checked out Within Temptation, they are a great band. This album in particular is just mind-blowing. So good. All right, almost done. All right, we are done. So everything looks pretty good, and I don't need to tell you about what it looks or sounds like because you all know what a treble bleed sounds like. I run them on all my guitars. Some people prefer to leave them off on the Strats and the Tellys because they're bright, but I just like it, and it's super easy to do. I'll put the Stewmac link in there for those treble bleed deals, and keep your workplace clean, be safe. Hot solder, I think, is probably the number 3 best way to put an eye out. a loose guitar string. A flinging around guitar string is probably the second best way. So, take care, everybody. Happy tweaking on your own guitars. And then go in, polish it up. I also lowered all these pots because they were standing just, incredibly high off the body. So now they're nice and low. When I bought this, the guy said it's set up beautifully, etc., etc. It's been a lot of work. The nut was too high. The action was terrible. The intonation was all wrong. I may have to get another go-to bridge. In fact, I ordered one already because I've had to turn these saddles around to get the saddles far enough in either direction, the direction I need to have it intonate properly. I had to flip some of them. So just another example of, I don't want to say poor workmanship because it is a nice guitar, but I ordered another vintage. It'll be here Friday, a V100, because when I picked that thing up, even though it had a cracked neck, it just felt good right off the bat, right out of the box. It tuned up, it felt good, it sounded good, it feels good. This is a fight. I'm always fighting the tuning on this, so I'm going to have to look at, before it's the way I want it, even though the guy said it's beautifully set up, people just don't know what it's like to play a nice guitar, a guitar that's set up correctly. So many people don't know what that's like that they put up with crap, a lot of garbage that you shouldn't put up with. A guitar should be fun to play. It should draw you in. You should wake up in the morning thinking, dang, I want to go play. You should go to bed at night wishing you had a few more minutes to play. But I'm going to have to replace this probably. And because of the intonation things down here, I may have to go with a modified nut, although I've been thinking about it, and I might be able to do it myself. The pictures online of those nuts are pretty clear, and I've got some ideas of how I can tweak on that myself. But flipping these saddles was kind of a must. I had to work on that as well. Some of these wouldn't twist without looping. You turn the screw and it would work its way out of the hole because it wasn't quite straight, or the hole in the bridge wasn't cut circular. It wasn't a circle, it was a U. And there's a slight out of roundness to the screw, so then when you try to turn it, it would work its way up like a can type situation. So just workmanship stuff. And this is a $500, $600 guitar, and it shouldn't have that kind of stuff going on, in my opinion. So, thanks again, everybody. Take care. Pick one of these up. It's amazing. All right, so we're all done. The treble bleed. You might ask, why do we care? Well, it's so you can play nice mellow stuff. And then by turning up the volume, just with volume control, you get all that gain, or lack of gain. So, pretty cool. Without someone throwing a blanket over your amp. So, treble bleeds are great. I put them in everything. I don't know why they're not standard, but it's a fun, easy mod to do. Anybody can do. So, get in there and do it. Try one on your guitar. Just with the roll of the volume.